So I cook flavorful, delicious, plant-based meals for people who thought they would never eat plant-based meals that were actually tasty and could reverse health conditions for them. And I want to share that with you so that you could do the same thing starting today. I'm Shayla Nettie. I am an internal medicine physician, but I am also a plant-based personal chef. And I come on YouTube and I show videos about how to do awesome recipes that have lots of flavor, but also how to use food to improve your health. We're going to talk about 3 very simple steps that I even took myself before starting this journey as a doctor and as a chef, what I did to try to change around my health and how I thought about plant-based eating, and then sharing that with you guys. All right, so what does that look like? So I get lots of questions. All right, well, how do you get enough protein? What do you eat? How do you know what to cook? Do you get full? Is it boring? Does it taste good? So on and so forth. And I just say, listen, it doesn't have to be hard. I promise. Like when I did this 3 years ago, I thought it would be hard because when I thought about eating plant-based, the visual I had in my mind was eating salads all day and maybe like a veggie burger. So like a Beyond Burger or an Impossible Burger, and that I wouldn't enjoy anything because I would miss meat so much. That has been the furthest thing from the truth. And I want you to know that the same thing can be true for you, but there are steps that you have to follow. Like anything in life, it's going to be a process. It's not going to happen overnight, but it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be boring. The first thing you got to ask yourself is, are you ready to change? And really the main way to know that is, do you have a powerful why? Like that's really the first step before all the other steps. Do you have a powerful why? My why was my daughter. My daughter was born with a chronic heart condition where she only had 2 working chambers and you need 4. So she's had 3 open heart surgeries. Three open heart surgeries. She's doing wonderfully, but she is my why. She is me and my husband's why. So, I made a change in how I ate maybe 5 years ago and really started building towards eating more plant-based, first to help her with her health, then to kind of help me and help my family. Then it became, I want to do well so that I could be around for her when she's going to have kids, when I want to, even before she has kids, when I just want to have energy to run around and play with her and not be tired. And then I thought, look, I'm 38. I'm not 40 yet. I'm very close to 40. I'm not 40 yet. I'm super close though. I don't want to wait until I'm in my 50s. Don't have as much energy. I'm tired. Maybe there's health conditions that I'm worried about then, and say, okay, let me make a change. Let's be proactive. So I encourage you, if you don't have those things like what I mentioned before, the diabetes, high blood pressure, not react, do things now instead of being reactive, be proactive. So once you have your strong why, then we can go to the first step. So the first step is to start with what you already know. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Don't try to start with all of the recipes and, eat the way this person does on social media, or even me. Think about, what is it that you already like? So when I have clients, first thing I ask them is, what foods do you like already? What are you already eating? What types of cuisines are you interested in? What types of restaurants do you like to go to? What ingredients do you tend to lean towards? Because then you can use that as the base and start saying, okay, how can I sub in foods that are like plant-based, and then sub out the food that is not that meat. So for example, for me, loved burgers, like burgers, fries. That was like the main thing in my head. So to me, I knew there were black bean burgers. So I was like, okay, let me figure out black bean burger recipe. Chipotle. I'm not a big Chipotle fan, but I like Tex-Mex bowls. And so how can I sub out the meat that's in the Tex-Mex bowl? Maybe I can use beans instead of chicken and ground beef. You still keep the rice. You can still keep the pico de gallo. You can still keep the guacamole. Can't do the cheese. Maybe I don't need cheese. Maybe I can focus more on the salsa. That's just tomatoes, onions, and cilantro. Those are veggies. You see what I'm saying? So it's start with what you have. It doesn't have to be starting from scratch. Everything has to change. Take everything out the pantry. Start with what you have. My base for everything is onions and garlic and oil. Avocado oil, saute the onions, chop up the garlic. Usually it's fresh garlic, but you could do it with garlic powder. And then veggie stock, add that as a liquid, put in my vegetables. My protein is usually either beans, sometimes tofu. I know tofu makes people nervous because it's it doesn't taste like anything. That's what makes it powerful, because you can make it taste like whatever you want it to taste like. But I'm going faster than I probably need to, because like I said, we're starting with what we know, and most people are not eating tofu regularly, so we can save that for later. The main thing is, think about what foods you already enjoy, what foods you already like, and how can you sub things in to take away some of that meat and start to add in plants. So then that brings me to another point that I think is important is what does it mean to be plant-based? So plant-based is not the same thing as vegan. Vegan is usually a philosophy. It's usually someone who not only doesn't eat food that comes from animals, they don't consume any product that comes from animals. So not just food, but things like leather, for example. Whereas plant-based, it's more open to interpretation. So for me, how I see it from myself is kind of an 80-20 rule. So 80% of my diet, of my eating pattern, of my plate for most days is going to be based off plants. So that's fruits and vegetables. And then 20% of the time I'll have some type of meat-oriented product. Another term you'll hear people say is plant forward. And so, it's important to keep that in mind because vegan and plant-based are not technically interchangeable, but just something to kind of be aware of. Okay, so then number 2 is build like your own go-to plant-based meals. I wouldn't even say meals, more like plant-based ingredients. And the reason I say this is the next step is that you want to get comfortable with pulling ingredients that you're used to, that you're very familiar with. So you're not always thinking about, okay, what am I going to make? What should be the next step in this recipe? For me, I tried to learn recipes at first and it was kind of difficult because it could be very overwhelming. And it's like, this recipe says I need to get, chili crisp. And when I started this journey, I didn't have any chili crisp in my fridge. And so I'd go all the way to Walmart or whatever the local store was and spend all this time finding this one ingredient that I was only going to use one time for this one recipe that I didn't even know if I really liked it. So what I would say is instead of following recipes that tell you all these steps that are complicated and they have ingredients that you may not be used to, instead, figure out what ingredients do you like. So for me, I try to keep, onions on hand, fresh garlic. I try to make sure all my spices are up to date because spices, they come from plants. So garlic powder, onion powder, cumin, curry powder, turmeric, smoked paprika. Gotta do cinnamon powder. I use sea salt. I use black pepper, but those are like my main go-to spices. Staple ingredients doesn't just mean food, but also equipment. I'm always using parchment paper. I use parchment paper because I put it on my sheet pans. So that way when I'm doing sheet pan meals, I don't have to constantly have to clean up all of the mess when I'm roasting vegetables. I put the parchment paper on there. It makes cleanup easier and it makes it simpler for me to make this a real weeknight dinner. So that brings us to another point. Don't feel like you have to get all these fresh vegetables and put this pressure on yourself to think, all right, I gotta cook all these things every night or every 2 nights. In the beginning, most of my vegetables were frozen. Actually, I prefer frozen vegetables because it gives me more time to like buffer in case I'm not able to cook something on a certain day. I don't have to feel like, oh, that food is going to go bad in a couple of days. Frozen broccoli, frozen sweet potatoes, frozen butternut squash, frozen carrots, all of it. I roast those in the oven. I put those same vegetables in my stews and my soups. They work very well, and they're frozen at their peak level when they're harvested. As opposed to fresh produce, unless you're going to a farmer's market and the farmer. I'm always keeping veggie stock, vegetable stock, I guess I should say, coconut milk. These are the basis for my curries, for my stews, for my soups. So when I say having plant-based ingredients, all that means is once you figure out what those meals are that you already like from that first step, then you figure out, well, what are those ingredients that I need to always have on hand that make it easier for me to do that? And don't feel like that means it has to be from scratch. Maybe you get something that's already prepped. That can make it easier for you too. If you're not trying to make something from scratch, you can buy pico de gallo from the store. You can buy your salsa from the store. Just look at the ingredients on the back. Make sure it's not a lot of added like sugars, things like that, because they will add that sometimes to preserve the flavor or just to make it taste better to you because of the sweetness. Go at your own pace. Remember, this is a process. It's not about getting a perfect grade. You want to take your time with this because once you figure it out, this is what I like to eat. These are the ingredients that I'm always going to have on hand. You're going to get more familiar. You're going to feel more comfortable with it. That's what happened for me. I got so comfortable with cooking these meals that I started inviting people over to the house, and people would make comments like, "This is plant-based? How? Houseway?" That was so corny. But how is this plant-based? And it led to me leading cooking classes with my nonprofit. And then to where we are now, where I'm cooking for other people in their homes to show them that, man, veggies, they don't have to be boring. They can be super flavorful and they can do good things for your body and still taste very, very good. But that took time. I mean, it's been 5 years of me kind of walking this through. It didn't happen all in one day. So don't compare yourself to other people. You can look to other people for inspiration. That's what I did. And some of my favorite creators that helped me once I got comfortable with plant-based ingredients, start thinking about new ways to think about recipes. Shakayla, I think her last name is Felice, but Shakayla, I'll put her YouTube in the caption or in the description, because a lot of people have asked me questions about like different ways to shop on a budget with plant-based meals. She has a whole catalog of videos that are so amazing. She does a lot of what do I eat? What I eat in a day videos. She does a lot of those types of videos, which I love to watch. She has an awesome personality. If I'm not mistaken, I think she's in Atlanta. Maybe she's in Washington. I forget which place. But she's super approachable, very relatable. I love Grub Bunny. I think that's his name. He kind of focuses more on like a more West African lean towards eating plant-based, which really resonates with me because my husband's from Ghana. And so I like to still incorporate different stews and foods that he's used to that have that same kind of flavor profile without the meat part. I'm trying to think, who else have I liked? Tabitha Brown. How can we not forget Tabitha Brown? Like, right? I have her cookbook, love her cookbook. I used to watch a lot of her stuff on social media. If you're into more short form, instead of doing like the long form version, you can get the ingredients really quick, kind of see how it looks and see if that's something you're interested in. That's what I would do. I would look at stuff at short form first, see if I liked it, and then if I liked it, I would do the long form version to really get the recipe. And then cookbooks, right? So I know it's old school to pick up a book, but cookbooks are super helpful because then you kind of understand why the person is choosing the ingredients. Whereas social media, things are so fast, especially if you're doing short form, or maybe you don't get to that particular part in the long form video because you didn't have time. I love using cookbooks. I make sure to put some on the screen that I like to use. As a few that I've done. There's one called West Winds, one called I Can Cook Vegan. But having that curiosity will help you start to see food differently and just be creative. Now, okay, there's probably someone who's like, I don't cook, I don't want to be creative. Like make it simple, make it even simpler. Well, there's food that's already prepped. There's juices that you can use. This is an empty bottle, but this is one of my favorite juices. Smoothies, already prepped vegetables, already prepped plant-based meals. Just for all those things, make sure you're always reading the nutrition facts, looking at the ingredients, and really making sure there's no animal products involved, and then just seeing what the nutrition is for that food so you're well aware, because you don't want to trust just what's on the front screen. Just because it says it's healthy on that front label. I tell people that's like a commercial, like an advertisement. Everything is not true that's on there. It's more to grab your attention to get you to pick it. But turn it around to the other side, read the nutrition label, look at the ingredients, and do the research for yourself. So I mean, I hope that I've helped you see that eating plant-based does not have to be hard, and it doesn't have to be boring. It can taste amazing. It could be super flavorful, and it's something you could definitely do. Just start with what you know, build up your base ingredients and your base meals, and then go at your own pace. And in time, you'll be where you want to be on this plant-based journey. And hopefully I'll still be rocking with you and helping you along the way. Let me know in the comments, what is the hardest struggle for you when you think about transitioning to a plant-based diet? Or if you're on one already, what has been difficult for you? Let me know in the comments and we can figure out what we could do next in the next video, if that's something you're interested in. Thank you for watching.